Guys, today we're going to be revisiting an old build of ours that we haven't really touched on for a very long time, our Captain America build. Now, a huge reason why we're actually recovering this build is because we believe the next exotic that Bungie is giving us an exotic catalyst for will be Monte Carlo. Again, what Bungie teased a very, very long time ago was the possibility of utilizing Monte Carlo in its bayonet. And considering this build also uses Monte Carlo, it was about high time we broke out Captain America once again. Now, the exotic of choice that we also have paired here is none other than Second Chance. Now, Second Chance got a buff alongside the launch of Season the Deep, stating that the shield throw melees now weakens enemies. And stunning a barrier champion with your shield throw grants a single full melee charge. Now, because of these changes, alongside the fact that our old Captain America build utilizes the old armor mod system with elemental wells and such, it's a good time we finally brought this up to parity, as we now have some very nice void mods and our artifact that synergizes with this build very well. And yes, you can use this right now, considering we have Grandmasters. This is an excellent time to break out Captain America. Now, the most important part of this build is going to be the use of your shield throw melee alongside Second Chance. The shield throw melee is a pretty common option to run on Sin Titan. You throw your shield Captain American style, and it does damage and gives small bits of void overshield upon hitting enemies. Now, they're good on their own, but get pretty strong when used with Second Chance. More on that here in just a bit. Now, you can run whatever barricade you want. Rally barricade is on a lower cooldown, but I will admit, in things like GM content, having that tower barricade offers a lot of protection. Now for your grenade. There's a lot of great options here, but we tend to still use suppressor nades for this build, simply because of the suppressing debuff utility that they provide. Very, very good against loose and high. You're also welcome to run whichever super you want. This is completely dependent on you. Now, like a lot of our other abilities, the aspect you want to run in this build are pretty flexible. For the purposes of this build, we chose the following: Offensive Bulwark, where while you have an overshield or while inside Ward of Dawn, your grenade charges significantly faster. You also have increased melee range and damage, and melee final blows extends the duration of your overshield. This will also give you a second shield throw while in your single shield super. We also chose Controlled Demolition, where hitting a target with a void ability or volatile explosion makes them volatile. Further damage to a volatile target causes them to explode. Now, this grants you and nearby allies health when a volatile target explodes near you. The combination of these two aspects allows our shield throw to be a lot more effective and get more damage and better ad clear capabilities. And it also allows us to keep our void overshield when combined with the rest of our build. Now, if you feel like you want even more overshields, you could swap out Controlled Demolition and slot in Bastion, where you get an overshield when placing down your barricade. So a lot of flexibility here, guys. Now, our fragments are where we start to switch things up in comparison to our last iteration of this build. First, we're going to be running Echo of Leeching, where melee final blows start health regeneration for nearby allies. Now, the health regen is nice, but the extra resilience helps balance out that resilience penalty from Echo of Persistence, where void buffs apply to you, invisibility, overshield, and devour, have increased duration. Now, this allows us to keep our overshield for longer, letting us benefit further from the melee damage buff from Offensive Bulwark. This will also play into our next fragment, Echo of Starvation. We're simply picking up a Void Breach or an Overpower Grants Devour. As we'll cover later, we'll be making plenty of orbs and Void Breaches with this build. This allows us to have almost constant uptime of Devour, and when combined with our intrinsic 50% damage resistance that you get from having a Void Overshield, this shoots your survivability way up. Finally, we have Echo of Cessation, where finisher final blows create a burst of void damage that causes nearby combatants to become volatile. Now, this is cool and all, but the main part of this fragment that will be helping us out is the second part, where defeating volatile targets creates a Void Breach. This is extremely powerful when combined with our Controlled Demolition aspect, which then allows us to spawn a Void Breach on every single ability kill that we get. Now, if you're running a much higher PvE activity, like a Master Lost Sector or a Master or Grandmaster Nightfall, and you feel like you're really needing an extra bit of survivability, you could choose to swap out Echo of Leeching for Echo of Obscurity, where finisher final blows grant invisibility. And this time, if you ever are in a shifty situation, you could just finish off an enemy and scoot away while invisible. Now for our weapons of choice. There's only one that's going to stand out above the rest: Monte Carlo. Now, we recently reviewed Monte Carlo in PvP, and let me just say, guys, this weapon still slaps. I think it's still one of the best 600 round per minute auto rifles in the game. But Monte Carlo is all about regenerating your melee ability. As you get final blows, you'll be granted a chance to fully recharge your melee ability with each kill. But guys, it takes it a step further. It doesn't even require to get kills in order to feed back your melee energy. As you get hits on any enemy, your regeneration will be going up, approximately 2% per hit. Now, Monte Carlo also has Markov Chain, which really synergizes very nicely here. It's a damage buff that acts exactly like Swashbuckler, as in if you get a single kill with the weapon itself, it gives you a single stack of Markov chain. But if you get a melee kill, you get all stacks of Markov chain at once. Now the difference between this and Swashbuckler is the damage percentages. You see, Swashbuckler increases at 6.7% with some slight rounding, but at times 5 it caps out at 33.3%. This is inside of PvE and in PvP. Now Monte Carlo with Markov chain does the exact same thing inside of PvP, except the damage percentage inside of PvE is actually more than that, essentially almost double. You see, at 5 stacks of Markov inside of PvE, you're looking at a 65% increase in damage. And considering how often you're throwing your melee, you'll find yourself with 5 stacks of Markov. And keep in mind, this is on top of the inherent extra 40% damage that exotic primaries have against red bars. So all in all, Monte Carlo is doing some solid damage as it sits now. And with that sexy new Deep Stone Crypt themed ornament this season, now the question comes up, how is the bayonet going to assist in this weapon's overall functionality? They literally stated, quote, the most complex catalyst they have ever made. Believe me, fellas, I'm hyped. Now on to the key feature of this build. Our exotic armor piece of choice, Second Chance. Now this comes with the exotic perk, Myrmidon's Reach, which states, gaining a second charge of your shield throw melee. Your shield throw melee now weakens targets and becomes shield piercing, stunning barrier champions. And when you stun a barrier champion with your shield throw melee, you regain a melee charge. Now, like we mentioned earlier, Second Chance's new buff lets it weaken enemies on hit and will fully replenish your shield throw upon stunning a barrier champion. Now, this helps a lot in giving Second Chance that extra little bump it needed to make it a strong contender in today's sandbox. And when you combine this with Monte Carlo, your shield is almost always going to be up, giving you an almost permanent pocket weakening tool for you and your teammates. And the beautiful thing about all of this is that it breaks a barrier champion shield in one hit, and you get a charge of your melee completely refunded when you do. When combined with the rest of this build, you'll be able to throw your shields out constantly. And if you're out of your melee charges, you can just utilize Monte Carlo to get those melees back instantly. Now, as for the stats that you're going to want to focus on, make sure you do hit 100 resilience as your top priority. The 30% damage resistance from max resilience is just too good. It's easily still the best stat in the game. Next, you can focus on discipline. Now, I know you're probably wondering, Cross, why not strength? Well, considering we're rocking Monte Carlo here, guys, you really don't need it. Trust me. Instead, invest in that grenade more. Now, as for our armor mods, a lot of these armor mods can change out if you want to switch this build up. On top of that, it seems like we get mods disabled every other week, so keep that in mind. On our helmet, though, we are rocking hands-on mod. You can rock 2 of them if you want. You can also rock a kinetic siphon mod if you're getting kills with Monte Carlo. And the hands-on mod really feeds into our super, considering how many melees we're throwing. Now, on our gauntlets, it really just comes down to you. I know a lot of people are going to think that melee kickstart is the way to go. Keep in mind, though, guys, melee kickstart does not proc unless you're expending all of your melees. As in, it won't proc on the first melee. It's only on the second melee, when your melee is fully expended, that melee kickstart will actually activate. Now, that's not to say it's not good, but there are other mods, if of course they don't get disabled. I love things like Impact Induction, Focusing Strike. One feeds into your grenade cooldown, the other one feeds into your class ability cooldown. These are very, very good mods. And personally, I feel like they actually rival Kickstart unless you're actively taking advantage of armor charges for those Kickstart mods. But if you are, you can kind of have an endless loop here with Heavy Handed, where you're literally feeding orbs back into yourself with that endless loop of grenade energy. On our chests, we don't really have anything too fancy. We have some charge up mods if you want to carry some more armor charges. Honestly though, in in-game content, resist mods are very important. Now on our legs, we're actually rocking one of the new mods introduced this past season, Elemental Charge. This states that collecting a Fire Sprite, Ionic Trace, Stasis Shard, Void Breach, or destroying a strand tangle has an escalating chance to give us armor charge. Now, because we're making so many void breaches from Echo Cessation, this will allow those to both give devour and feed into armor charge. Following this, we ran 2 copies of Invigoration to give us even more melee energy upon collecting orbs of power. Again though, swap this up accordingly, guys. If you're trying to top off health for survivability, by all means go that route. On our class item, we ran some outreach mods to help us regain even more melee energy. And if you want, you can actually slot in something like Powerful Attraction. This collects orbs in a radius around you upon using your class ability. So essentially just putting down your barricade will collect those orbs, topping off that armor charge even more. Now this is where the build would normally stop, but this season we do have some very nice seasonal artifact mods, and I know we're getting to the end of the season, so if you want to just take what we've already gone over to carry into next season with whatever the new catalyst is going to be for Monte Carlo, by all means go right ahead. But this season, we have Unto the Breach, stating that defeating a Void debuff target creates a Void Breach while your Void subclass is equipped. Now, considering we're literally debuffing everything with our abilities, this will let us gain even more Void Breaches. This plays into Protective Breach, where picking up a Void Breach gives you an Overshield or refreshes your existing Overshield, allowing us to upkeep our Void Overshield and the damage resistance that comes with it. There's also Supernova, where picking up a Void Breach causes your next source of Void damage to create a large weakening pulse. Hot! We even have Anti-Barrier Auto Rifle this season, which you're not going to really need with this build, but hell, you can throw it on anyways for Monte Carlo, just in case you do miss that shield throw. Granted, all of this is going to change next season, but Second Chance and the synergy that it has with Monte Carlo, that won't change. And the foundation of this build will still be very good. Overall, the change that Bungie made here for Second Chance is a really nice one. The weakening effect, taking out a barrier champion's shield in a single melee. All we need to truly get this build to perfection is to see whatever the hell it is that Monte Carlo is getting with its exotic catalysts. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.